that man is Gianluca Scamaca. Quite a handful to say. We'd have to get familiar with how to say that one. But I guess just to start with, lads, what is the type of player we can expect to see from someone like Scamaca? And if he was to join, hypothetically, what assets he would bring to the club?
I'll let Sloth kick off on this one, and then I'll jump in after.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of covered my man crush on him kind of the other week, didn't we? Where
we did. We got quite quickly.
The best way to describe him is he's a 6'5" mobile target man. His numbers. It's really interesting because he's a great goal scorer, and he's got a ton of aerial ability. He's got an absolute hammer of a right foot that he doesn't really need much lift back with. But I think he got 1 assist this season, and that really kind of doesn't tell the story of how good he is with his link-up play, because he creates chances, but he's really good with his feet. Now, bear with me if you're kind of recoiling and thinking, the same things were said about Allaire, but he's a much more of a mobile target man. He presses and he does really put himself about. He's much more of an Arnie style player than someone like Allaire. And I mean, for me, it's a really exciting link. We'll go over whether I think it's kind of what I think of the deal further on. But in terms of a player, he's one that I think he'd be the most exciting Italian since Paolo Di Canio. Let's face it, in my opinion.
Bold statement to make, that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's how confident I am that if he came, I mean, at the very least, he'd get goals from headers, from set pieces. He would cause havoc. So, I genuinely think if we signed him, we'd be looking at least 10 goals in the first season, and then pushing on to that as he kind of adapts. So I'm very confident with it if he were to sign.
Yeah, I guess, Mike, touching on your view of it, you produced a really nice scouting report over on our Twitter, which I just put on the screen momentarily, and I'll put it back up again now for everyone to see. And just, I guess, run through what he's like as a player from this in a bit more kind of statistical detail, and what people could expect from him, and how he kind of compares to, say, a Broja or an Antonio that we've already got.
Yeah, so, as Sloth said, he's got really good link play. His link play is good, but in terms of sometimes receiving it into feet with his back to goal, his hold-up play can sometimes be a bit inconsistent. So he's very good link play. Hold-up play sometimes it's slightly hit and miss, but ultimately, overall, what he does to kind of compensate for that, like an Arnie, which Sloth was right to point out that was the player I was going to go for that type of player. He has that swagger anyway about him, but it's more that he likes to drop into pockets and then link and then move. So like with Allaire, who likes to stay central, which Scamaca likes to do as well. But what he is more likely to do is to drop deep, to get the ball turned and then run with it, or lay the ball off. He's much more kind of mobile in that sense. At 6'5", you would think he's just going to be a target man, but he has so much more to him. He's got a lot of technical ability. So I guess you could probably, if you want an English context, a Peter Crouch in many ways, in the sense of really tall, very technical player, can score goals which you would just go, you shouldn't be doing that because you're a big man. You should just be getting on the end of things and heading them in. Anyone who's not watched him, thoroughly recommend you go and check out the goal he scored against Milan this season, and arguably against the top goalkeeper in Serie A last season. He just completely just left him rooted to the spot as he just popped it into the top corner. It was sublime goal from outside the area. The things that have impressed me as well is that when he gets a chance, he's pretty clinical. He doesn't really miss when he's on target. The shots are always good and his conversion rate's high. Again, defensively, maybe he doesn't do as much as he should do, but again, it's partly down to how Sassuolo play. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. They kind of allow him to be a bit more free because they have players like Berardi and Raspadori who kind of do some of that kind of donkey work behind him. and it's kind of to allow him to be free and collectible and then pass it on. So what he does is bring elements what we have with Antonio, but ultimately he brings a different kind of flavour. So that is why when I say the links that we had previously to Mbolo and Mbolo's now going, I'm not gutted about that, because for me it's too similar to Antonio. I know people like the idea of what we need like for like. You don't. Or I don't think we do. I think we need alternatives, because last season we had Plan A. Plan A didn't work. We had Plan A 0.1. There's never actually go to a Plan B. Yeah. So to have an actual Plan B and a way to change our game tactically would come with someone like Scamaca.
Yeah. I think the pointing thing for the Mbolo deal is just the price. Yeah. Like 12.5 million euros is nothing.
Isn't it? Really is.
And you're just kind of thinking, well, I mean, I'm not that bothered about missing out, but 12.5 million is nothing these days. Yeah. So yeah, that's the only disappointment with that side of things, I think.
In regards to Scamaca then, I mean, it's been reported that it's going to be around 40 to 50 million, which is we're likely to go in with around 40 million if we are going to bid, and I think they want more towards 50. So having him as a plan B is nice in theory, but if you're bringing someone in for 50 million pounds to play striker, the emphasis will be that he will be a starter. So I guess it moves on to kind of our next topic with him, how he compares to Antonio as a player and what Moyes would prefer to go with. Would it be a game-by-game situation? Because if you're coming in for 50 million pounds, you're going to want to be starting. You're going to want to be imposing your impacts. Like, we don't want to see another Haller situation where we spent 45 million and he kind of gets disregarded by the end of things because he doesn't play how Moyes wants to play. So if we look at the comparison here with Antonio, you can kind of see the differences between the two players. So I guess another one for you guys is to kind of take a look at this and maybe give your opinion on who you would want to see leading a line. Should they both be at the club next season, and who you think Moyes would prefer to go with?
I think when you look at it, so statistics tell one side of the story, right? It breaks out all of the emotional side of football. And what we can say is with Antonio, if you look at this, what you could arguably say is that Antonio likes to play more in line with being physical and being in touch with a centre-back. He likes to play with his back to goal and to engage physically, or to be engaged physically by a player, because he likes to roll them, likes to get the ball, likes to run with it. Whereas Scamaca is more about a player who likes to kind of drop deep, make passes, and then utilise space in which to get in to score. Now, if you also look at the kind of scoring as well, Scamaca actually scored more goals, obviously 16 in total over the course of the season. Obviously, let's be clear, these are league views, not a total season. But again, what you've got to look at is Scamaca obviously does get more shots because, again, he's in more positions to shoot. Also, the way Sassuolo play as a front combination is quite similar to us in many ways, in that they have inverted wingers. Berardi is very much like Bowen, if we're going to kind of pick as to who they are. But he's enabled to get into positions where he can score, but also that's his primary operation. It's you need to get in the area to score. With Antonio, we have a different premise on how we use him. So again, this is why I talk about plan Bs. Certain games, you maybe don't need an Antonio to be running the channels all the time. You just get in the area so we can get the ball in the box, and we want you to fight it out. Again, you look at the percentage of shots, nearly 50% of all of his shots are on target. About 26% are also then goals converting into goals. His goal conversion is one of the best in Europe as well. If we look at shots to percentage, it's one of the best in Europe. So whilst many will say, "Oh well, he's not going to be the same as Antonio," that's fine. Why? We've worked with Antonio. Antonio works brilliantly for us, but not in all games does Antonio work. And I think we have to acknowledge that sometimes he can get marked out of a game, or he can go slightly missing and drift wide. that's where he's actually done well in the sense of because of his ability as a winger, he has then obviously created through crosses and so on. So in those games where he has struggled, he's ultimately maybe done something in some of those games because he's been able to impact in other ways. But we've got to appreciate that what we're going to be signing is a natural striker whose instinct is to work within the boundaries of the 18-yard area. And his, primary objective is to score. And I think sometimes as fans now, the way football has developed, that we tend to actually undermine players who are concentrated on that simple truth of wanting to score goals. And we look at the assists and go, well, they're not doing enough in open play. But if they're scoring 16, 17 goals, the assist is redundant. Antonio got 10 goals, I think, and about 8, assists, something like roughly off the top of my head. So if you've got a player scoring 16 goals and Antonio's doing that, well, neither one is more effective than the other, really, in reality, because it's maybe a 2-goal difference. And if you also look at it, Antonio's expected goals is less. So his goals to expected goals is less. So I think he's wasted at least 2 to 3 opportunities to score.
Not surprising either.
No, exactly. And it's because sometimes he can be rash. We've been seeing that in the preseason game against Ipswich. A couple of you just kind of laugh because in that game was Antonio in a nutshell. Beautiful cross for Zuma, brilliant header from Zuma and then goal. And then he gets a couple of shots and he completely fucks his lines, which is why we kind of love him and at times are so despair at him. But Scamaca in that situation has a calmer exterior because that's been his role since a kid all the way through to being a professional. So there's more of a natural ability and we shouldn't look down on that. And in terms of what overall contributions, and Sloth made the point, he's involved so much in play that the one assist doesn't tell the whole story. He's involved a lot in that build-up and he's a player that can facilitate that quick movements. And remember when we had like Andy Carroll, as soon as the man got in the area, defenders panicked, draws 1 or 2 players to him. You can then have players running at the back post. That's why, especially in the Boleyn season, why Antonio did brilliantly, because Andy Carroll, when he got in the centre of got in the area, petrified players. Antonio could come in round the back because all of a sudden you have a player that occupies a defender and a centre back.